Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. This week we're doing another Therapist Reacts video, and today I'm reacting to some of the comments that have been left on my channel in regard to religious trauma or in regard to purity culture, aka dress code. Because believe it or not, the two are related. Over the last couple of years doing YouTube, I've gotten a lot of comments. If you saw my conversation with Joe from Flourish, you'll know that that is one of my favorite things about being on YouTube is the community of viewers that is growing. The people that comment and share their stories. It means so much to me and to others when stories are shared. So I've taken a couple of comments, a very small subsection of comments that I've gotten over the last couple of years, and I'm going to react to them here. A lot of these comments are ones that are repeated over and over again. People's experiences mirror these experiences so strongly. And so I'm going to use these comments to explain to you why certain things were not okay in your life and to maybe help us all get a little bit more comfortable with calling this stuff out. Comment number 1 is about religious trauma. I'm going to put it right here for you to view. I don't think I have religious trauma since I've never been forced into religion, but ever since I was young, I always felt intense anxiety and dread whenever I had to attend church. Like I felt like I'm being stared at and being judged over everything I do, from taking donuts from the breakfast table or shaking hands with the people around me or standing up to sing or pray, etc. It is really, really easy to look at some of the stories out there of religious trauma, of people being assaulted and the egregious things that people have done in the name of religion and think mine was not that bad, so I can't possibly have trauma. And I want you to understand that's not true. Trauma as a whole is any deeply disturbing or distressing experience. The fact that you're feeling anxious when you're shaking someone's hand or like everyone is watching you and judging what you're doing by anything that you do, that does mean you've experienced trauma. Whether you're forced into attending religious ceremonies or not, there can still be trauma there. The expectation that, especially churches, especially here in the US, the expectation we put on people about their need to perform and their need to be perfect or their need to not have flaws in general, that's traumatic on someone who's just trying to live life. When I was working in churches, we would say, churches are for the sinners, not for the saints, or,
churches are like a hospital, you don't come if you're well.
And that's all well and good, but the ways that we treat the people who come in and the ways that we talk about the people who aren't there are the things that people remember. Those are the things that people carry into their conversations, into their understanding of what church is and who they have to be to go there. And that's what makes the difference. That's what makes this, in reality, trauma. Number 2, it's a little bit longer, so I'm going to put it right here on the screen. When I was 16, my mom took me to a religious counselor, and he basically said my depression was spiritual warfare and demons were trying to get my soul. And the solution was that I had to get up an hour earlier and meditate on Psalm 23. Luckily, I'd stopped believing on my own by that time, so I wasn't so shaken up by all of that. But if I had been a believer, that is a truly terrifying thing to say to a depressed teenager with a chemical imbalance. I'm 19 and moved out on meds now and have an actual therapist, which has done more good than losing sleep to think about demons trying to possess me ever could have. Yeah. It's amazing what actual therapy and medication will do, right? This imperative that comes out of churches, out of religions in general, that you not be flawed in any way. I don't even like to use the word flawed because having depression is not a flaw. That's just part of who you are. But it's seen as a flaw in churches. It's seen as a flaw to have anxiety or depression or to be sad in general. I remember growing up, I was always taught it's selfish to pray for yourself and selfishness is wrong. God doesn't like selfishness, so don't pray for things for yourself. What? If God loves me and loves everything about me and knows all of my needs, then why wouldn't I pray for myself too? Seemed suspicious. Still kind of does. The 23rd Psalm, if you're not familiar, it's the one that goes, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pasture, leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul, my cup runneth over. It talks about being with you in the presence of your enemies, and it talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, but you fear nothing because God is with you. How old was this kid? And they're told that you need to meditate on the fact that God's going to make you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. This one hurts me deeply because the idea that someone should just power through and fake it till you make it, or pray until something happens. That was a big one that was talked about a lot when I was in youth group. It denies the person's suffering in the first place, and also denies their personhood and their individuality in the second place. And it's absolutely ridiculous and scientifically unfounded in the third place. You don't have to hate science to believe in God. I don't know if anyone's told people this. It might be a really big secret. Let's start telling people. When people go to people they believe in and people they look up to with their struggles, and they're told they don't have enough faith, or they're not praying enough, or they're not good enough for God to take it away from them, when that's your answer, you might be wrong about God. It is never okay for someone to be told that their struggle, that something they're going through, something that is derailing their lives and causing them distress, that it's because they weren't enough of something. You are enough in and of yourself. You always were, and you always will be. What you have to give in any given moment is enough. You don't have to go beyond that. It's okay to take meds if you need meds. It's also okay to say, I'm not going to take meds because I don't like how they make me feel. Those are both okay things, but I would never say to someone across the board, don't take medication or do take medication. It's not the same for everybody. When people struggle with depression, if they're already feeling emptied out and scared and hopeless, for you to tell them that their only option is to lose sleep, which, by the way, people who are depressed already have a problem with sleep, Pastor. There's that. To tell them that their option is to lose sleep and fervently pray and meditate on a psalm that talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, like, oh my gosh, you cannot possibly think that's going to help. Because even if you as an adult, in your understanding, if that verse brings you comfort, cool. That does not mean it's going to bring a child comfort. And you have an obligation to protect the kids in your care. All right, we're turning now to a little bit of purity culture. Sometimes wearing spaghetti strap tanks has more to do with professional attire and training our young ladies to be respected by their peers in their future career paths, not just because they can cause temptation to others. The mind-boggling part of this to me is that the person legitimately commented this and did not see anything wrong with it. So, anonymous commenter, let's dig into this one, shall we? Professional attire means what? So professional attire means don't show too much cleavage, don't show too much leg, don't, show too much arm, right? That's about what professional attire for our young ladies is, right? But why? Why is that professional attire? Because society says so? Okay, cool, that's awesome. But why does society think so? Why? Where does that idea come from? The only answer that anybody has for that question is,
it comes from the fact that when you're in a business situation, you shouldn't be showing too much skin because it's distracting.
Why is it distracting? Why is my epidermis distracting to another human? What could possibly be distracting about my skin? Right. Nothing. Let's talk about sexual things. Where is the discomfort coming from when you see someone's skin? Bodies are not sexual. I will never, ever, ever stop saying it. Bodies are not sexual. Seeing more of my skin does not require any response or opinion from you. Let's talk about the training our young ladies, right? You're training your young ladies to be respected by their peers. Okay, cool. That sounds like a really good idea. Why do I, if I were one of these young ladies, why would I need training to be respected? One would think that the training that I would need to be respected is the training for the skills that are required in the field that I go into, right? I need work ethic and honesty and maturity on some levels for some jobs, right? There are some jobs that you need to have maturity to be able to handle. My gender and my dress should never be included in training, ever, unless you're training other people to stop objectifying women. Maybe we try that as a training. Just a thought. So while I appreciate this comment, I'm going to be honest, you discounted everything you said because it is still just about not trying to cause temptation or distraction to others. Still is. The next one is, I don't know, very similar to this. Maybe it's written by someone who knows the person who made the first comment. I'm 34 and my preacher told me that I tempted my date by wearing spaghetti straps. It was a maxi dress. They blamed me for him trying me sexually after only 2 dates. That's his own character. You're right. That is his own character. And that had nothing to do with what you were wearing. Nothing you wear or do replaces consent. You could be drunk. You could be wearing very little clothing. I don't care. That does not imply consent. If we talked more about things like consent from a very early age, if we taught children body autonomy, if we taught teenagers to ask for permission to enter someone's personal bubble, if we paid more attention to the fact that people's bodies are theirs and any invitation or any access we get to them is given to us by them, we would live in a much different society. I have said it before and I'm going to say it again. Rape culture comes from the church. The idea that men have an open door policy to women's bodies is the assumption of power that men are supposed to have over women. If we would stop teaching that men are the ones who are in charge of everything and women just have to sit back and do what they want, we would stop having so many men thinking it was okay to take advantage of women. I don't know why that's a hard concept for people. What happened to this commenter is not okay. The fact that an authority figure in their lives said, it's your fault, is not okay. The last one is a super fave. Saved it for last because it's so simple. Women do it to men too. Don't forget that. I won't. The comment was put on a video about men exerting their power over women. And somehow this commenter thought it was really, really important for me to understand that women also do it. If someone is taken advantage of, no matter who they are, no matter who is taking advantage of them, it's never okay. I'm a big fan of Bravo, and I'm a really big fan of Below Deck. I can't explain it. It's enthralling to me, and I watch every season. There is a season, I think it's like 7 or something, and there's this guys club, this boys club, and they're just, bottom line, they're chauvinistic, and their rules for them versus the women on board are completely separate, and they didn't even realize it. And they would go to each other and be like, is what I said okay? Is this okay? Is that okay? And then I'll like build each other up because, well, that's what the 4 of them did for each other. That's who they were as people. And then you go to the reunion special, and anytime anyone called them out on their stuff, they'd be like, I realize that. I'm very sorry. But you also. An apology is not an apology if it includes the word but. An apology does not excuse away what is happening. The statement of women do it to men too doesn't actually hold any water because the majority of these things happen men to women. You can't justify bad behavior by pointing out someone else's bad behavior. You deal with the bad behavior, you fix the bad behavior, and you move on. Someone's misbehaving, they'll get to point to someone else, say they misbehaved worse, and it makes it okay. That's not how that works. When I first got this comment, I just kind of laughed at it because I was like, oh, whatever. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, that tracks. Because that is how we treat a lot of things. We talk about violence, and we talk about racial tension. We talk about injustices in the church and injustices in the world. And we say, well, this whatever is worse, or this whatever does it too. So what's your point? What's your point? Does that make it okay? Is that what you're saying? When people make those kind of comments, when people say, oh, well, they do this too, or that happens too, or women do this to men too, all you're saying is I've heard what you've said and I feel guilty. And guilty is icky and I don't want to feel it. So I'm going to try to just push it off on someone else so that we can all feel icky together. If that's who you want to be, you can be that way, but that's not who I want to be. And I'd hope that there's more people out there who don't want to be that way than people who do. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to check out any of these comments, go ahead and check out this playlist here. It's all about religious trauma and purity culture, and I will see you next week. Have a great one. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.